What's up, guys? This is Alpine Gremlin again. We're checking out some World of Tanks gameplay. This time we have my JagdPanzer IV Tier 6 German tank destroyer. On the map Redshire, we're playing a standard battle. And I want to do this video because this is probably one of the best games I've ever had in this thing. My experience with it on my grind down the German TD line hasn't been anything really spectacular. I've had some good games with it. Nothing as impressive as the Stug, but it's not a terrible tank destroyer, especially with the gun that you can equip on it. It does have an 88, but I actually prefer to use the Stug's gun just because it's got a higher penetration. It's got a lot less damage than the JagdPanzer IV's 88, but the 88 actually has about 30 or so millimeters less penetration, and I like having penetration over raw power. Also, sorry if the video is a little choppy. The World of Tanks replay system is pretty good, but it's not perfect, and you get these kinds of things where the game that it was coding in kind of comes out a little bit choppy at places. So please, hopefully it doesn't ruin the video for you. But anyway, this game didn't really start out too spectacular. I mean, my shooting really wasn't all that good coming up here. I missed this T-49, and then I basically finished him off. He only had like 50 HP remaining, and I ended up getting the winning shot. But like right here, I miss him, and I reload, and that ends up finishing him off. So okay, first kill of the game. Now here's a Stug. I apparently penetrate him for no damage. Pansafia. Miss him. Then I get a second shot. That goes through. I'm gonna get another shot. That one goes through. And then the T-25 next to me. And this is when things start getting good, because this starts turning into a shooting gallery for us on the hill here. It just turns into a complete decimation. We have people out there spotting. We got behind cover here. We're concealed pretty well, so there's really nothing these guys can do. I mean, I set that E2 on fire, that jumbo Sherman. Here's a T-29. I'm gonna get a couple shots into him. That was a 0 damage crit, but this next one goes through it, I believe. Yeah, that tracks him, and that pens him for damage. Bounce. I bounce off him a couple times, but the angle's just not right. He's got that angled body, and he's on an angle, so that basically makes it that much harder to penetrate. No other activity except over here, the KV-1. You got a couple good shots on him, especially when he starts turning his side armor to me like that. And that sets him on fire again. Second kill by fire, even though it wasn't my kill. The T-25 got it in the end. Shooting up this BDR. I finish him off and switch our attention to the T-150. I mean, we're just throwing rounds down at them. It's ridiculous. And I finish off the T-150 for my 4th kill of the game. Now, you'll notice I am running a camo net on this tank destroyer. Any tank destroyer above tier 5 and above, I personally believe is worth putting a camo net on. You're just going to be that much more successful because you have, I think for tank destroyer, it's a 50% decrease in detection, which is huge, especially if you're behind a bush like I am right now. My platoon mate gets knocked out by a T-29, and that's kind of my cue to get into cover because, I don't know, he's shooting from his hold down position, and nothing I can do is going to damage him. So I'm going to shift my attention to this VK 3002 DB, who's giving my T-43 some trouble. I'm going to get a couple shots into him, and then he eventually, that bounces, he manages to get his front armor to face me, and I lose him. But Anyway, a lot of people regard the JagdPanzer IV as a really bad tank destroyer, and I honestly don't see this. Granted, I'm sure when when the game was in its earlier stages, the matchmaking I know for a fact wasn't as good, so this thing will get thrown into high tier matches. But for its tier, it's not bad, but it's not spectacular. It's average. I mean, I really like the if you look at that frontal slope, that is near impossible to penetrate for vehicles that are its tier or close to its tier. I mean, that's a pretty rough target to hit. The only thing is you've got this massive lower glacis on your front that people will always shoot for if they know anything about weak spots, because it is a massive weak spot on this tank. But I mean, it's you're gonna see in a few minutes. I used that slope to my advantage, though. I mean, I managed to deflect a T-29 shot from his 105. So I mean, it's good. I mean, if something hits that front slope, it's gonna bounce. Unless, the thing's, 3, 4 tiers above you, but you don't get those games anymore because they fixed the matchmaking system. So I'm hitting this KV-1. No damage. I hit him again. That does damage. Now, I don't want to shoot him at this point because he's showing me his gun mantle, and any shot that I take on his gun mantle is probably going to bounce. So I try to get into his side armor there, but that does not quite go find its mark. But he starts turning his turret to me, so I gotta make a choice, and I hit him right under the mantle, where the turret is pretty easy to penetrate. So I end up, it was kind of like out of a movie. He was about to shoot, and I got off the first shot. I don't think I've never actually had a game in this thing where I've been down to 13 armor-piercing rounds. And I always keep 12 high explosives in reserve just in case I encounter something that I really have no chance of penetrating. But I don't usually have to use them because I find that this thing, the games it gets into, even tier 8 games, the Stug's gun, which interestingly enough has a faster reload speed than it does on the Stug, even though it's the same weapon. But it has a faster reload speed, and I might actually have to get a rammer for it because I'm curious to see how fast it can really reload. But there's really nothing you'll encounter in this thing that you can't penetrate anywhere. I mean, there's always, every tank you face, you're going to be able to pen it somewhere. Now, whether or not you can kill them, that's a whole nother different story. But, I mean, if you get into a tier 8 game, there's really nothing you can't penetrate at some point. Alright, a KV-4's frontal armor, alright, that's pushing it. But, the back of a KV-4's turret you can get through. The lower glacis of a Type 59 you can get through. So it's not a bad gun, and it's not a bad tank. It's not as spectacular as the Stug is, just because it's a couple miles per hour slower than the Stug because it's heavier. But basically, most of the stuff on this thing is already researched. If you fully upgrade the Stug, when you get to this thing, it's already there because this thing really doesn't have anything different than the Stug did. I mean, you're using the same engine on the Stug, which is why this thing is a little bit slower, because it's a bigger tank with the same engine. It's got the same gun selection with the exception of the 88, which in my opinion isn't all that great. Again, much prefer this gun, the 75, because it's got a much better damage per minute in my opinion. I'm playing the tank destroyer role here. I'm hoping the KV-1 can lure out some people that I can shoot while I hide behind cover. But this T-29 reveals himself first, and he gets pretty damaged. This is my cue. I'm going to try and get in there and finish off whatever I can of him, because the T-25 AT needs some assistance, especially because you'll see The VK 3002 DB goes in for a flanking maneuver. So I figure I should take out one of his opponents. I could. Here you're going to see how I kind of angle myself to deflect that T-29's gun. I peek out just a little and back off, and he bounces right off my gun mantlet. So I go in. He's got a long reload on that 105, so I don't even have to worry. I can just finish him off. Shoot his lower glacis, and he is done. And here comes the AMX artillery. I'm going to try and cut him off before he can do any damage to the T-25 AT. And killed him. I'm coming for a ram, but I think I actually shoot him instead. And here comes the VK making a run for the base. He's going to try and reset the KV capture, but we're not going to let that happen. Get a shot into his side armor. And you know, props to this guy for trying to save the game. To, you know, at least try and help to secure a win, but it just wasn't enough, and he shouldn't have turned his back to us, especially. But all in all, it was a good game, and again, this is probably one of my best JagdPanzer IV games. It's just, you know, it's not a bad tank, but it's nothing spectacular. I wouldn't call it absolutely crap, but I wouldn't call it, you know, one of the best tanks in the game. It's just average. It's in between. So, with that, 7 kills, base captured, 5 rounds left. All in all, pretty good. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.